Hello, I'm Horace Douty in Lexington, Virginia, and each Thursday I'll bring you a local history lesson. And incidentally, the history lessons are coming from my volume 1 of my 2 volumes of local history called History Lessons from a Country Church. And these books are available on Amazon, but they're also available in downtown Lexington at Downtown Books and the Bookery. And I encourage you to stop by if you like these stories, all about characters who lived long ago in this part of Virginia. Today, I'm going to talk about Archibald Alexander, who started here in Rockbridge County. And I hope that you will go and subscribe to Horace Douty YouTube, and then hit like and hit the little bell icon so that you'll be notified, and then share these lessons with your friends and your family. Thank you. Archibald Alexander is interesting. Born here at Rockbridge, and I feel a spiritual kinship with him. He and I both were born in a little village called Cornwall over on the eastern edge of Rockbridge County. Both of us received our formal education at what is now known as Washington and Lee University. Both of us spent lonely hours at night on Brushy Hill in prayer. We both became Presbyterian clergymen, but here the similarity ended because Archibald went on to fame. He had several advantages. He was born more than a century and a half before than I did, and he had William Graham as a teacher. Archibald's father, William, and Uncle Robert came from Ireland to America in 1737. From Pennsylvania, they migrated into the Valley of Virginia and helped settle the huge grants of both Beverly and Boardman. Archibald was born in 1771 across the valley from the center and about the mouth of Irish Creek, where South River and Irish Creek come together. His family assisted in the building of the Timber Ridge Church, but none of them were pastors. Archibald changed that. He entered the ministry himself, and of his 6 sons, 3 became Presbyterian pastors. 2 were lawyers, 1 was a physician. There are several connections with Archibald Alexander. His mentor was the brilliant William Graham, rector of Washington, founder of Washington College from 1788 to 1793. Archibald preached twice in Rockbridge County. This boy from Cornwall began his ministry where 200 years later, another lad from Rockbridge, Cornwall, is ending his ministry, that's me. Little Archibald's friends called him Lord Pigtail because of the way he wore his hair. Generations later, when I came along, the children of the same neighborhood called me Horsetail. Many of them never learned to say my name correctly, which is Horace Dale. So there's one more similarity between us, Pigtail and Horsetail. Although always small and shy, Archibald forced himself to learn to speak eloquently and clearly. Long after he was ordained to the ministry, his reputation spread as being the amazing boy preacher. By age 25, Archibald Alexander was president of Hampton Sydney College. His energy, his intellect, and management turned that struggling little college around, setting it on a course to become a leading college of the South. And during this period, he married Jeanette Waddell, beautiful daughter of the famous blind preacher. And by all accounts, their marriage was extraordinarily blessed. She had every virtue of a good woman, wife, mother. Jeanette's health never failed, and her noble affection for her distinguished husband never slackened in their long life together. Archibald's college duties allowed him time for extensive travel. He spent weeks and months touring the eastern half of America, preaching everywhere, building enduring friendships with the leaders of our young nation. Archibald had a gift for remembering everything and everybody. Even in his 70s, that man could name every church and every pastor in the entire Presbyterian denomination. His children grew up recalling how their father poured information upon them. He identified every plant and tree to be found in the countryside. He remembered mathematical formulae. He spoke of each stream and valley and hilltop by name. He could quote the Bible for hours. When New England church leaders inquired where he received such impressive training, here's what he said: in the mountains of Rockbridge. He was referring to the mountains that we see when we look out our windows. Archibald was called from Hampton City to a large church in Philadelphia, where he served with growing distinction, and by 1811, at age 40, Archibald resigned the pastorate to take on the job of his life, the founding and the operation of Princeton Theological Seminary. It became one of the strongest graduate schools in America, educating thousands of prominent clergy. Princeton Seminary, adjoining the campus of Princeton University, owes its birth and its first 40 years to the boy from Irish Creek. Thus, Archibald Alexander may have influenced the world more than any other native of Rockbridge. Interesting, few local people know of him. Some 50 years ago, the Rockbridge Historical Society had a historic highway marker placed at the confluence of Irish Creek and South River, where Archibald was born. But the sign washed out and for 40 years lay on the shelf of the Rockbridge Historical Society. And now, I personally have replaced it on a boulder down at Cornwall, where it originated. Archibald died in 1851 at the age of 80. Sweet Jeanette followed him less than 1 year later. They lie in the graveyard at Princeton, surrounded by headstones naming a veritable who's who of American giants. Some of them were John Witherspoon, the only clergyman to sign our Declaration of Independence; Jonathan Edwards, who converted thousands of tough pioneers with such sermons as "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God"; Samuel Davies, who gave much of his life to the freedom of religion in our country; and Archibald Alexander, founder of Princeton Seminary. Be proud to speak his name. He got his start here in Rockbridge.